With nearly every success, there is a line of failures and setbacks, sometimes a very long line. Many of those stories get condensed into pithy journeys that minimize the struggle. That's where From the Ashes with Mark Azoulay comes in. On today's show, you'll hear honest conversations about triumph and disaster that Mark's guests faced and how they overcame the adversity to shine. Now, here's your host, Mark Azoulay.
Welcome to From the Ashes. I'm your host, Mark Azoulay, and I'm joined by my great friend, Melissa. Now, I first met you, Melissa, when we were working at probably the worst mental health agency in Boulder, Colorado.
Are you even allowed to say that?
We can't use names, but, we can mention a little bit of that.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. Great. Yes, that's true. Accurate. Boop.
But I feel like we really bonded because I do know about you, I guess. We saw the corruption of that. We saw the brokenness of the justice system. And I think you and I really connected around just kind of looking around and being like, what the hell is going on here?
In a nice way. Yeah, that's what we did, is what the hell is going on around here. That's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was reflecting, I was writing the description for this podcast. That was like almost 10 years ago. Like, are we old?
You stop it.
Now?
You stop it right now.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago. Oh,
it was like 2013.
Thank you for aging me that quickly. I appreciate that.
Right.
Was it really 10 years ago? I can't believe it.
It's 2013, right? So like 8 years ago?
Yeah.
That's a while back.
Wow.
We've kind of each gone our own ways. We've grown.
I know, but we were always like reconnected. We've always been buds, but apparently not your work wife.
Oh, Marion's going to be upset about that one.
Marion, I have to tell you, I was really sad when I saw that description. I was like, oh, he's betraying me.
No, that was our episode one guest. So
she was wonderful to listen to, by the way.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you've been up to since then? Who you are and what you're all about?
Oh my God, that's the elevator pitch that I was just talking about. Is anybody? I am not good at that. Are people good at that? Is that a thing?
I think with practice, yeah, people get good at it.
Oh, so I just need practice. Is that what you're telling me? Woof. Okay, so
good thing you're on a podcast.
I know. So 8 years in the making. That was when, ironically, I was working inpatient, working at the, this facility you were talking about, and I was also bartending while trying to work my way through grad school. So the irony there is the bartending while working at a DUI facility and an inpatient facility while getting my hours for addictions counseling. What I did was I made my world just keep going round. The irony. So eventually I had to stop because apparently morals had something to do with it. Weird. But I know, it's an odd conflict. But I then graduated with my grad school, and then I was doing at-home therapy services for a while, and then moved into a small group practice. And then as of last year, I put my big girl pants on, and I became a private practitioner with my own little business.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I know. It's really cool. But, I'm light years behind the successes of you, Mark. You're just blowing me away. The time I turn around, you're like, and I'm doing this on top of this, this, and this, and this.
Well, now you can say you've been a podcast guest, right?
Well, always a guest and never a host.
One day, I'm sure you'll have it. I think it'd be great. I listen to your podcast. I think it'd be fantastic.
There would be it would just be inappropriate. I don't know if people want to hear that, but here we are, you and I. What do you want to talk about, Mark? What do you want me to say? I feel like I've done the elevator pitch and now my armpits are sweating. I'm like, let's move on. Let's talk.
Well, on this podcast, we're focusing on, your From the Ashes story, right? Your stories of recovery, your successes, your failures, right? Like what you learned along the way and how that shaped who you are.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you say that, because I don't really say that I've come from anywhere, but when you start to tell the story, you go, oh, wow, I can't believe I actually survived that. I can't believe I went through that. Because you hear stories from your clients and you're like, God, my heart goes out to you. I could never imagine what that's like. And then when you have to share your stories, it becomes very different. So I noticed on your little bio that you put on there about Catholicism, combat, and couples counseling. So I guess I figure we'll talk a little bit about where that is. So
You like that title?
I know. I was like, he was in his zone when he wrote that.
Alliteration works every time.
Oh my God. Okay. So I grew up with both my parents being in the military. My mom's a retired colonel. My dad's a retired captain. And then basically everyone else in my family is in the military but me. I probably couldn't hack it. Let's be honest. I wouldn't be able to handle people yelling at me. But so my mom was officer. My dad and everyone else was enlisted. And I don't know if this is experienced for everybody, but from what I've experienced, there's a difference between officers and enlisted. Officers are, I guess you would call them a little bit more professional in the field. And I'm not saying that enlisted aren't. I'm just saying that from my experience, the enlisted are the much more what you would anticipate from the military of like, we're doing 100 push-ups and we're going to yell and we're going to get aggressive and we're going to have this huge masculinity thing going on. And that was the majority experience of military lifestyle that I had was this part. But my mom gave kind of like a nice ray of sunshine that there was another avenue. We didn't move around because by the time that I came along, mom was reserved and dad was retired. So she only did like the every other weekend or something like that gone. But the rigidity of rule conforming and basically doing as you're told, that really came from where I went to school. I went to a Catholic elementary school and a Catholic high school, and it was your shirt has to be tucked in. There is no talk back. It's like very what you would predict, but no nuns slapping you with rulers. I didn't have that, luckily. But with that being said, my mom and my dad are both very different people. My mom, again, is like this ray of sunshine, and my dad is the very masculine, rough around the edges type of guy. And that bled into my older brother, Ryan, who loved the military. He grew up on a military base. He loved the helicopters. He was going to be military basically from the time that he was born. Then my other brother came along, Chris, and he wasn't that much older than me. My brother Ryan was about 8 or 9 years older than me. And Chris and I, we were pretty similar. We were different in some ways, but we were pretty similar. And when I was almost 12, he was hit by a car and unfortunately died from that. Now, when I preface the fact that my mom and dad are very different, it was highlighted in their grief.
Yeah.
My mom showed me how to grieve. Like she said, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel these ways. Let's get you into a support group. Let's get it to where you feel like you're going to be okay. My dad, on the other hand, he dealt with his grief by isolating and drinking and becoming aggressive and mean. My brother did the same thing. My brother, by the time that Chris did pass away, Ryan was moving into adulthood because he was so much older than I was, joining the military. And he coped with drinking as well and basically throwing himself into the military. So he didn't grieve. Then on top of that, around the time that he joined the military, he was also deployed multiple times. So he came back, pretty bad PTSD and alcoholism. And whenever he came home, I did not know what brother I was going to get. then my dad and my brother, because of their aggressiveness, they triggered one another. It was chaotic. Moving forward a little bit longer, my mom gets deployed. And now I'm home alone. I'm a teenage girl with my dad, who's an alcoholic. And he's rough. He's rough around the edges. And I got to the point where I basically said, fuck you. I'm out, right? And I decided one night, I can't take this anymore. I packed the bare minimum and I got in my car and I stayed in the school parking lot. And I basically lived in the school parking lot for about a month. The lunch ladies, I'm going to assume, knew something was going on, but I don't think that they wanted to make any waves. And I remember I had to get ready at school, so I would shower in the school locker room. And I was coming out of the locker room, and she handed me a breakfast burrito. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Thank you, right? Walking out, eating my burrito, feeling great. And the assistant principal saw me eating the burrito. And he thought that I had stolen it and gave me 3 days of detention for stealing from the school.
Ooh.
And at the same time, the school it's a Catholic school. They have rules and regulations, and I'm not exactly able to wash my clothes. I'm doing the best that I can with what I have in the moment. And I was getting detentions left and right for a dirty uniform, shirt being untucked. Why wasn't my schoolwork turned in? It was ridiculous. And the thing is when you look back on it, it's like, why didn't any adults be like, what the fuck is going on with this kid?
Right. Like, why are you getting punished instead of being helped?
Right. But what's interesting is I remember specifically a person in administration telling me that I'm a fucked up kid because I kept getting in trouble. And all they saw was that I was getting into trouble. They didn't ask themselves why. And it was because my mom was deployed. I had basically lost both of my brothers. I lost Chris to being hit by a car, my Ryan to PTSD. My dad's an alcoholic. I'm living in my car, and none of these adults even asked me what was going on. Right? So the system wasn't paying attention or looking out for me.
Totally failed you.
Yeah. So fast forward, I'm living in my car. Finally, some family friends said, hey, our daughter has an apartment with her young son. Why don't you move in there? You can help her with the bills and help her with the kids. So I'm 17, 18 years old. I move in with this young mom and her son. I'm working full time to try and help pay the bills. Our electricity is getting shut off. I'm trying to just now figure out what it means to even go grocery shopping. And I get told, if you don't pass these specific classes, you're not going to graduate. I didn't have internet in my car. We couldn't afford internet where I was living. And still, I was basically being punished from the system. Fast forward, I actually do graduate. I think part of it, some teachers kind of took pity on me and they didn't want to deal with me, whatever. I graduate and I moved to Germany. And I was like, I need to get this shit out of here. I can't handle this. I need to just figure out who I am. So I moved to Germany. I start college. I come back here and I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. So I start taking classes at Front Range. And then I take my first psychology class. And I can't even explain how excited I was to finally start learning. Like, I was on top of my schoolwork. I was all about psychology. And so it just kind of bled from there. I was like, feed me more. And I decided to get my addiction counseling because it's in the family. And then I started to get my marriage and family therapist degree because of systems. right? So there's that all nicely wrapped up in a bow for you of why I'm a therapist.
You said you didn't have a story. That's an incredible story.
Well, so, I mean, really, you hear stories and you're like, oh, that's so impactful. And then when I say mine, I'm like, well, I survived, I guess. Or I don't know.
Whatever, it's like lived in my car for a month and like went to Germany and like family steeped in trauma and loss and grief. Like, I mean, whatever. I mean, people, go through that shit all the time.
And that's it. That's my, but I have nothing more that I want to share with you. Are we done now?
No, but we are about to go to our first commercial break.
Beautiful.
When we return, we're going to hear more. I want to hear more about you in the story, right? I want to hear more about how you felt, what was going through your head, how you were making sense of the world, and how that informed who you were today. So for those listeners out there, please stay tuned. Follow us on social media. Right, shoot us an email at podcast@mark-azulay.com and follow us on everything. The username is Mark M. Azulay. So stay tuned and we'll catch you on the other side of the break.
Find out what's happening on the Voice America Talk Radio Network by keeping up with us on Twitter. You can find us at Voice America TRN.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are the experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azulay.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-Azulay, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azulay. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azulay.com. Now back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back to From the Ashes. I'm your host, Mark Azulay. I'm sitting here with Melissa, and we were just hearing about her story of growing up, losing two brothers, one to a car accident, one to PTSD. Living in a car, living in your car in the parking lot, right? Lunch lady comes out, gives you a burrito. You get accused of stealing a burrito. Mm-hmm. You get admonished by the school, and you decide to book it and go to Germany. Mm-hmm. Can we pick up the story there? Because I want to know,
tell me what you know about Germany.
Yeah, why Germany? What were you thinking? What was it like living so far away and it's so different from where you were?
So it's not super different. That's where my mom was deployed. My mom was deployed in Landstuhl, Germany, and that's where I went to go live. So I lived there with her. I lived with my sunshine for a little while. And we traveled. I got to meet my family in Sweden. It was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I felt like I just kind of yes, this is what I want in my life. But yeah, I lived on a military base, and there was a combination of U.S. military and Germany military. What's fascinating, it used to be a concentration camp.
They put a base on a come on, man. Really?
It was like a youth camp. Yeah.
A youth concentration camp?
There was a tower that was still there. We visited the tower that was on there. Yeah.
Like they killed kids where you were staying? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know. I think it was a youth camp, like basically where like kids to work. I don't know if they killed kids there, to be fair, but they did have kids stay there.
And like mine or like what kind of work?
Oh, Lordy. I really didn't ask too much detail because it was just me and my mom like touring around and reading plaques. But yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, Germany is absolutely fabulous. I loved Germany. I loved Sweden more, but that's because where the family is.
Put the concentration camp. We'll put that on the back burner for now. As the Jew on this call, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Details, I know.
Yeah, they should make that into like a museum or something. You just live there.
It's amazing.
Did you see? Were there any ghosts?
Was there any ghosts?
There's got to be.
Oh my
ghosts,
God, I would not look because I'll tell you, I am terrified of ghosts. Terrified of them. Can't. Don't welcome it. Can't do it. Because I'm pretty sure I've had experiences that that were terrifying. I don't want to do it. Nope. Didn't explore it. Didn't offer it up to anybody to come visit. Nope.
Didn't go there. Okay. So if there were ghosts, you didn't know about them.
I didn't explore that option. No. I was too busy wallowing in my own self-pity, I suppose. And then dancing on the hills.
Now I'm curious about your ghost experience. Should we turn this into an occult podcast?
Oh, we probably should. Yeah.
Want to make a paranormal podcast?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
All right. What ghosts have you seen?
It wasn't like seed. It was shit being thrown at you.
You had a ghost throw shit at you?
I'm not going to invite things that I don't want to invite. Okay? Actually, the female that I lived with in that story that I was telling you about, she's my girl. She's my jam, right? So her and I wait until, if you got her and we start talking about ghosts, it would, things have happened to that young lady that I'm surprised. Is this what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about ghosts now? I'm okay with that transition. I don't know if some people are.
If the network is okay with that, let's go back to the story. But I do want to get the information of the person you live with, and maybe we can get her on the podcast.
Yes.
I would love this to be like a secret paranormal podcast. It'd be the greatest hoodwink of all time.
For sure. Okay.
I got a couple ghost stories that I can tell at some point. Aliens too. So tell me about, you're in Germany, right?
Yeah, I'm in Germany. It's great.
With your mom. You get your sunshine back.
Yeah. You
go to Sweden, do the origin trip, right? See your family.
Yeah.
Why did you ever come back then?
Oh, okay. So I had the option of staying even though mom was coming back home because I could have finished school out there. My mom was saying that if she doesn't return home now, she's not sure if there's going to be a marriage later. And I wanted to support that. And so I thought that if I was there, she wouldn't feel so alone in whatever she was walking home to because I was there. And I wouldn't want her to experience that, even though that's not my role, that's my responsibility. I didn't want her to do that alone. And so we came back together and we said we were going to try and tackle this together.
Did it work?
No. But I'm glad that we had each other because it sucks going at it alone.
Right.
And honestly, I think that's right. And honestly, I think that's partially, some people, when their parents or someone in their family has an addiction, they're like, oh, I can relate. Let me do this addiction thing either because I was the addict or someone who I love was the addict and I want to, in theory, save them. But I think what happened for me on some level was that I was wanting to be a support for people who were in my position. I wanted to be there for the family who was experiencing the addiction. So that's, I think, where I was being led personally.
Right. And you were saying before the break that taking the psychology course and learning about systems, right? Seeing things as more than just the person was really exciting to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I really do believe it's not, and I do believe there's probably some narcissists out there who would disagree with me, but this isn't your world and everyone else is living in it. This is our world. That, like, what I do and what I say has an impact on my kids, has an impact on my family and the system further out. And for me, I broke it down to, it's not just the individual that needs the work. Other therapists can do the individual work, because I'm so angry with my dad, I can't save him. Let me save the couple. Because I believe that if my parents, if they had a different relationship, if they took time to listen, to be respectful, to be open and willing to be vulnerable, my life would have been very different. My life when mom deployed would have been very different. My life after losing my brothers would have been very different. So I have this concept of, if you get the couple right, you can get the family right. Get the family right, you can start broadening the scope. And it's realistically, when you have a substance addiction, it's a relationship. So for me, it is all about systems.
Absolutely, right? And when I was in my addiction, and I think a lot of addicts in general, we're often just the most sensitive, and we're acting out the sickness of the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ours was grief.
Yeah.
Ours was grief and a very toxic, masculine viewpoint of how one should handle feelings.
Just do push-ups until you don't feel anything anymore.
That's basically what it was. It was basically like, suck it up, buttercup. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the systems idea, when you put it out there, it's so clear, it's so obvious, right? Like being like, hey, it's not just you, it's the whole thing, and there's a lot of complicated parts, and clearly no one exists in a vacuum. But when I tell that to clients, and I assume you have the same idea, it blows their minds.
Yeah.
Because I found when people are in their suffering, right, they're so caught in their own head, just to have this idea that it's not their fault, or not having this blame component, or not having the sense of I'm messed up or I'm broken, that there's actually many different variables that go into who I am. That can be such a liberating thing for people to hear, and to start to pull the camera back a little bit and see more of the moving parts.
Absolutely. But I think as I was growing, my anger was developing towards my dad, because it was this, why are you choosing alcohol over helping me grow as a person? Why are you choosing to drink rather than show up for me when I need you to show up for me? So I experienced a lot of anger, and a lot of anger towards alcohol, a lot of anger, like, I'm not good enough. Clearly, I am not good enough if alcohol is what you're choosing over your own kid, right? And that's what, and I have to continuously work through that, especially now, because ironically, my family, we're living with my mom and dad right now. My parents are still together, but I'm living with my parents right now. And it's that I got thrown back into this dysfunctional system, not only with a therapist brain, but going back into like childhood brain, and really trying to figure out, how do I function in this dysfunction? And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, you've got to be one of the most resilient people I know. I could not be back with my parents. And I know it's a traditional step for you, as you're saving for a home, and you're, taking the next step with your family and your children. You're stronger than I am. When I visit them, I got like 1, 2, maybe 3 days in me. And then that childhood brain comes back online, and I am in a world of just fear and suffering and shutdown, sadness, really.
Well, and it's, if we talk about attachment, right, the attachment styles that I learned from my parents was the secure sunshine attachment and avoidant attachment. I avoid my dad and he avoids me. And we do well when we avoid each other. And I'm working from home and my dad's retired and at home 24/7. So I am actually with him 24/7. When I'm like, if I'm not working and I have to, get lunch or something, he's there. Right. So it's forcing me to kind of face this relationship in a way that I had attempted to run away from when I got married, when I went to Germany, when I lived in my car. I am now because I'm not going to drag my kids everywhere. I certainly protect my kids. My kids have no idea what's going on with their grandpa, but I can't run. So what do I do with that?
What do you do with that?
Therapy helps. Therapy, like when you find a therapist that you feel like kind of aligns with your viewpoint, and not just like agrees with you and validates you, but I found someone who was a marriage and family therapist because they knew that I was coming from a systems viewpoint, and the things that she reflects back to me, I'm like, oh, God damn it, I can't believe this. I'm doing this. And I say to myself, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. And then she'll reflect it back and be like, guess what you're being like? And I'm
Those are the best moments. Those are the best moments in therapy.
It makes my skin crawl because I try so hard to repel those things. And then even just the rebellion of it is like that person. And so I can't effectively rebel even. I have to make the choice. Therapy helps. And I have an amazing husband. His sense of humor and my sense of humor, I think, really have kept our sanities. And my mom, she's a sunshine. My mom really is a sweetheart. So I think it's a lot better than I tell myself it is, but it's forcing me to grow, ironically.
It's forcing you to look in that mirror and ask the question of, hey, am I turning into this person?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or do I want to change how I relate with this person? Oh, that's going to be pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
It does sound like you do have a great support system. And the humor, I think we share that too, this idea of like, it's never too soon. Never too soon. And if people overhear us, they better be offended or else we're not being funny enough.
This is when I'm grateful that, it takes me time for the clients to get to know me and stuff. But once they get to know me and I can be that like goofy, inappropriate self that I am, I think that really helps this therapeutic alignment and helps people see, like, I'm talking to a person who has experiences, and she's not just knowledgeable about what she's got, like this field, but she's gone through things and she can get it,
Yeah, you're not just, spitting the book at them. You're speaking from your real experience and connecting as a human. I think that's so critical and is a fine line in our industry for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear more about that as we go into our next segment. We'll be talking directly to the listeners. So for those of you out there, stay tuned because you're going to hear what Melissa has to say to someone that is in a similar situation, what helped her, move through this and what she's working on right now. And before you, log off or take a break right during the commercial, follow us on social media, send me an email, follow us on the Voice America Empowerment channel. We got to do all this socials. We got to make this thing happen. It's early in the podcast life. And if we get a lot of followers, my show gets renewed and I get to do it for longer. So I'm hoping that happens. That's why we got.
And we can talk about ghosts.
And we can make it a paranormal podcast. Please email us if you'd like us to rebrand as a paranormal podcast instead of a mental health, wellness, and therapy podcast. So thanks all for listening. Stay tuned and we'll catch you on the other side of the break.
out what's happening on the Voice America Talk Radio Network by keeping up with us on Twitter. You can find us at Voice America TRN.
In Mark's work with high performers and business owners, it is becoming increasingly clear to him that their biggest obstacle to success is themselves. They are the experts in their field, but are dragged down by their anxiety, poor time management, inability to focus, or self-sabotage. His role is to help you overcome these emotional and organizational issues so that you can truly excel in your business and your personal life. One of the most common hurdles that he sees is perfectionism, a crippling anxiety around performance. It's a fear of not being good enough, being publicly embarrassed, or of disappointing others. These fears paralyze brilliant people and bring them to their knees. This course will help you to break free from this mental prison and have more agency in your world. In this online course, we will break down the prison of perfectionism so that you can break out of it. For more information and to sign up, visit mark-azalea.teachable.com. That's Mark, MARC-Azalea, AZOULAY.teachable.com.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
You are listening to From the Ashes with Mark Azalea. To reach the show today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to podcast@mark-azalea.com. Now back to From the Ashes.
Welcome back to From the Ashes. I'm your host, Mark Azalea. Sitting here with Melissa. Over the break, we were talking about drinking during the show, and we were talking about living the dream, right? We were learning that someone else is doing a podcast on horse racing, and we're here talking about touching stories of, recovery and learning and therapy and getting stronger. Melissa, let me ask you a serious question.
Oh, good. Okay. Now I'm all sweaty.
Are we in the wrong industry?
I'll tell you, I'm not good at anything else. So I don't know what else I would do. I haven't had more validation that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing than I honestly can't imagine what else I would be doing. Living in the car, probably.
Living in a parking lot.
I'm good at that. I know how to do that now.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I question. It is rewarding to do it. It's heavy though, especially this year, right? Because we've been first responders. I'm just realizing it now that we're a year out. I think I was able to keep it together, but now it's just oh my God, we've really been on the front lines of this whole COVID thing. And
you say that, and I'll have to tell you, I cannot agree and disagree all at the same time. So I disagree from the standpoint of I've been sitting in my house doing therapy. I haven't had to go anywhere to do therapy, right? When I think of frontliners, I think of my sister-in-law who's a nurse in the ICU. I have another sister-in-law who's I think of actual medical emergency type people, and I'm those are the heroes. I cannot see myself or categorize myself as a hero. And not that I'm discrediting any other therapist, because I think everybody does a much better job at everything than me. This is that whole I'm no good concept.
Sounds like a problem.
But and I agree in the sense of it has been taxing on me mentally with how much grief and trauma have come up because of COVID, and having to stay completely present for every client you have. It's taxing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about being a therapist. That's a metaphor.
Oh, I got a good one.
I don't know. It's maybe a visual. You have the firefighters, right, that are walking around the town. Something catches on fire, they got to put it out. Right? You got the front responders. Someone gets sick, they got to suture them up. They got to fix it. You have the soldiers, right? Someone's invading. They have to keep the watch and make sure everyone is safe. There's all these very clear things. But
Yeah.
what makes our job both like, I don't know, rewarding in that there's a high skill ceiling, but also really frustrating is that it's not tangible. You know, we're like walking around the town talking to people. And if we do our job right, they like kill each other like a little bit less, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
You know, or there's like less domestic violence, or, you know, a kid has a better chance. But it's very indirect and it's really invisible. It's not as clear as putting out a fire or suturing a wound. And of course, not to minimize those people are certainly heroes. And I think mental health has a place there too. We're maintaining order within the town while the, you know, invaders are attacking from outside.
We're basically hugging the people as they're crying that their house is on fire and saying, how does this make you feel?
Yeah, and like, I mean, I'll go a little further.
I call it here. So I know what I get. I totally get what you're saying. I have a hard time like validating my self-worth, which I couldn't tell you why, but I see it more like therapists are like Brazilian waxers, right? I could very easily wax myself, but one, I've not been trained to, and so I'm going to pay someone to basically get in the areas I can't see and get to the root of things and then say, oh, that was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I have so much more that can go with that analogy, but that's how I've just kind of seen what I do. I'm just a Brazilian waxer of the soul.
That could go on your business card.
You know, I wonder what the picture would be that I would put on that.
Getting to the root.
Like hair on the wax. Oh, God.
Yeah, it'd be like, you know, like waxing like a heart, you know, just ripping it out. Taking all your trauma and grief, just pulling it right out of your heart.
Sweet Moses. But yeah, we're waxers of the soul.
Well, as we're wrapping this up, we have, you know, in this segment.
Are we already wrapping it up?
No, we're not done yet. I'm just trying to transition you guys back on topic.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay,
Can you give me a chance here?
Yeah.
How would you like to, I'm trying to make a segue. Speaking of segues. How would you wax? Right?
Yeah.
Wax someone listening who can relate with your story. What would you want them to hear? What would you want them to know? It doesn't have to be as a therapist. In fact, it's better if it's not. Right?
Yeah,
as a human to human, what would you want them to hear?
Shit sucks sometimes. And sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it sucks. And you try what you can to not repeat the shitty times. There are certain things you can't prevent, like death. But if you can prevent repeating substance abuse, if you can prevent the avoidant attachment style, if you can prevent repeating what's hurt you, try. Does that help? Yeah. Is that was that like soul moving for you? Is that what you were looking for?
I think it connects with, it was. Oh, great job.
Oh, good.
I can validate you.
Thanks.
If you can't.
A+.
You can't validate yourself. Yeah.
No.
I'll give you a burrito any day. Don't worry, you deserve it.
Right to the heart there.
But yeah, no, it relates to a way that I look at the world. My phrase for that is moving the needle or trending upwards, right? As long as you can just move the needle a little bit or move the graph so you're moving upwards a little bit, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs along the way, that's progress and that's a win. And for me, I mean, I still do for sure. I'm not over this, but I fall victim to a perfectionism all the time. Where I want to, right? I mean, how long have you known me? Nearly 10 years.
No, okay. Keep going.
Where I want to skip to the end.
You're a perfectionist. Yeah.
Big time, right? I want to skip to the end. And it's not because I have high standards for myself, which I do, and for other people. So the people I date, which is a whole nother problem.
Okay. Yep. Not a tangent right now.
We'll get to that in a future podcast. I'm sure you'll come back for season 2. We can do the all access Mark Adjolay dating life. But
oh my God, yeah.
Not right now. I don't think it's because of the high standards. It's mainly because for a while, I'm really uncomfortable in that middle zone of feeling dumb or feeling clumsy or not knowing that I'm making progress or being in what you're talking about, that like suck area where it's like, oh my God, it's like really hard right now and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I just want to skip to the end. And because that's impossible, what would happen for most of my life is I just wouldn't do anything. Like, I wouldn't even start because I knew that that shitty part was coming up.
Sure.
And I've had to work over time. You know, I can prepare a lot ahead of time and I do, but no matter what, there's always going to be that shitty part. It's unavoidable. And the things that are worth doing are often the shittiest, at least in the beginning.
Oh my God, right? Yeah. It's the waxing part. It hurts when it gets ripped out, but then it's nice and smooth and then it grows back and it's itchy. So it really, Mark, the thing is I do know that you like to get things right the first time and you want to do well. And I think you have done well. I mean, you have a podcast, right? For me, I feel as though I sit in the core belief of I'm not good enough, so I'm going to have to keep trying, even though I know I'm not going to be a star athlete or whatever else. But I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to at least try and make myself proud. And when I make myself proud is when I'm done with couples therapy, in the sense of after I've done a session with a couple, I feel so full and happy and like do this like mental, fuck yeah, man. That was amazing to watch this couple turn to each other and have soft moments. And be gentle. And then when you see their progress over time, it just, it's good. It's gold when you get to see it.
Yeah, I can feel the tinglies as you're talking. I can't do couples counseling, but I can appreciate that you are about that. And I can imagine it must be so powerful to see those walls break down and to have them have a moment of connection and actually seeing and understanding each other.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It really is. It's like I found what felt my heart for sure. So to all of those who go through what I went through, shit sucks. You got to keep moving. Try and make it things a little different. And if you can, therapy. Right?
Yeah. Going into those darker places with an open eyes is really powerful, right? Going exactly, getting the Brazilian wax, right? Going as deep as you can. I think it's really powerful. And looking at it with fearlessness and accepting it as it is and being like, oh my God, this is where I'm at. You know, every time my wife looks at me, I just get terrified. Like that's shitty. Like that's shitty to say and to hear and to feel and to admit. But when you can say something like that, that's where the power is. And that's where the hope is.
Right. But so here's where I'm going to add to that still. It also takes a lot of power to bring in the person that you're struggling with and being vulnerable to say, this doesn't feel good. Right? I imagine, what it would be like if one day my dad and I did therapy. I don't know how well it would go. I attempted to do therapy with my brother, and that was somewhat of a disaster. But it takes a lot of courage to say, yep, I'm going in here with this other person, and we have been at ends. So what do we do? That's because when you do individual therapy, it feels like you can kind of hide it a little bit, right? You don't have to talk about it, and it's just you. And the therapist isn't going to go around and talk about it. But when you have to bring someone else in and you have to talk about this process with this person that you're struggling with. The couples, I love my couple. Am I allowed to do that as a therapist? Just say I love my couple? Is that biased?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
And well, I'm going to say
really important.
They're neato. They are neat.
No, I think you can say you love them.
I do. I really enjoy working with couples. But if we go on a different tangent, because now I'm uncomfortable, let's just talk about you and your couple. No.
Talk more about ghosts. The love thing is important. I want to thread on that because, like in all the people that I see, most of them are men. I'm loving them. And it's different for each person. It's different for me with each of them. Mm-hmm. But the work that I do, long-term analytic work, a lot of it's reparenting. And I imagine you're in that role with a lot of the couples.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
And they've never experienced love. And the idea is I try to beam that to my clients in doses that they can take. Mm-hmm. If it's too much, they shut down. If it's not enough, right, they don't feel anything. Yeah. It's not effective. But I think it's really important. And now that I've moved in my career, a big part of my intake process, I'm curious your thoughts on this as we're kind of moving towards the end here, is when someone's talking, I want to find something lovable in them before I even bring them into the practice. If there's somebody who I'm talking to and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get along with this person, I have the luxury now to refer them out. But everyone that I work with, I want to have some form of connection because I know that is ultimately what's going to heal long term.
Do you think that there's a potential of codependency on the love that you provide?
Oh, for
if
sure.
They didn't get it, if they didn't get it, I think, it's important to find redeeming qualities in the people that you work with. And I feel like it's so easy to find. And granted, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. But when you really build that relationship, again, working with systems, when you really build and feed into the relationship and you help them grow and thrive, it's all good, And you're going to go through some shit and you're going to rip out the roots. You're going to say, man, that was a good one as you hold up the strip.
And that's where the power is. So, Melissa, we are at the end. This conversation always goes by so quickly. I would love to have you on as a guest, for the second season. For those of you listening, please send emails to podcast@mark-adsley.com if you want to hear from Melissa again. If you have any questions for her, any comments, I'll forward it all to her directly. We'd love to hear what you think. Join the conversation on Twitter, #FromTheAshes. Follow us on social media, Mark M. Adsley at everything. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fun project, and I appreciate your support as we're building this out.
Thank you for joining host Mark Adsley for From the Ashes. Be sure to tune in again live next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We'll have another edition of the program then. Meet triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters the same. Until next time.